Death is one of the only things guaranteed in our lives, an end to our story. But it's not as simple as that. The suffering, the hurt, it's not just limited to us, the victims. The loss of a loved one or a close friend can be devastating for the people left behind. The void created by the loss can be crushing, leaving a feeling of numbness, that strong, overwhelming ache that can't be healed. Grief. Grief is the natural reaction to loss, and it's not limited to death, but the loss of anything that is held precious. When someone or something important to us dies, it represents an end to the reality we've been living, causing us to not only feel sadness, but guilt and regret. As a kid, I routinely watched only shonen anime, all of them centering around the idea of friendship and how hard work always prevails. And I enjoyed that, no matter how similar the plot points were, or the simple character developments. I thought, this just must be what anime is. And then I discovered Bleach, a story that tackles a theme I'd never even seen before, not even fully understood at that moment. It's true other shows had sad moments, but they weren't the foundation that their respective shows were built on. Bleach felt different. It was different. Even though I'd never experienced grief before, I could empathize with the characters, good or evil. I could feel the growth of each character throughout the story as if I was right there with them. That was the brilliance of Tite Kubo. So with the news of the continuation of the anime and a new spin-off series, I thought it would be the right time to revisit the titan that was Bleach. Throughout the story, Kubo tackles many themes with each arc being somewhat dominated by one core theme. And in the Substitute Shinigami arc, the overarching theme is grief and how each of the characters deal with their losses. In this arc of the story, a lot of backstory is revealed for each of our main characters, showing how each and every one of them has experienced some kind of trauma, some kind of grief that has influenced who the characters are currently. Right away, we're introduced to the main character Ichigo, who's a stubborn and short-tempered teenager born with the ability to see ghosts. And to me, Ichigo didn't feel like any of the usual protagonists. Ichigo felt like a real person. He was hot-headed and couldn't back out of a fight, but deep down he was genuinely compassionate and empathetic towards others. What I really liked about him was how he didn't care what other people thought. How he was viewed wasn't an issue to him, at least that was what I had thought. But with the loss of his body to another soul, Ichigo slips up. He freaks out over his image that he had created being destroyed. This isn't immediately brushed aside by Kubo, but instead brought up a second time, putting a slight crack in the Ichigo that we've come to know up until this point. The facade that Ichigo wears, his so-called image, is of his own construct. And to understand why, we must dive back in time to a point when he was younger. Ichigo didn't have the strength that he had today. He would lose match after match at the dojo, eyes filled to the brim with tears, only ever stopping when he saw his mother. No matter the situation, as long as he held his mother's hand, he would always be smiling. To Ichigo, his mother was the center of the world, and at a very young age his father told him that his name meant to protect one thing. So who better to protect than his mother, the person who meant everything to him? But all good things must come to an end, and Ichigo's world was about to come crashing down. For all his life he'd been able to see ghosts, to the point where he was unable to tell the difference between them and living people. And on one fateful day, as 9-year-old Ichigo and his mother walk alongside one of the town's rivers, through the heavy rain he catches sight of a girl near the river. Ichigo, frightened that she was about to jump, runs to stop her and blacks out. Later he wakes up with his mother lying on top of him, covered in blood. For days afterwards, Ichigo would repeatedly skip school to go to the riverbank where his mother died. He would stay from morning until night, wandering along the bank as if searching for his mother, resting when he was tired and then wandering some more, never fully coming to grips that his mother was gone. Guilt. That's what Ichigo felt, because she wasn't just the center of his world, but his family's as well. If he hadn't gone to save the girl, his mother would still be alive. If he had just turned a blind eye, his father would still have his wife, and his sisters, the ones he had vowed to protect, would still have their mother. Underneath the outward facade that Ichigo portrays is a guy suffering with guilt, still grieving for the mother he loved. Trauma is common in Bleach, and Rukia is another character like Ichigo who's dealt with grief in the past. Born into a lower class of the Soul Society, Rukia was later adopted by a noble family, but even with a better life, she found it difficult to open her heart to people, which made making friends almost impossible. Rukia grew up common, and being adopted didn't change who she was, but it changed how people perceived her. Now she was just another noble, discriminated against because of her privilege. Rukia wanted and hoped that the 13th Division would be different, going as far as telling a fellow Shinigami to treat her like any other recruit. But that ended up being too much to ask for, as she overhears them complaining about the favoritism shown to nobles. A downtrodden Rukia was disappointed that even here she couldn't escape her nobility. And it's at this point that she meets Vice Captain Kain Shiba. Kain didn't treat her any differently because of her nobility. He would scold her as if she was just another recruit. This was the first time since being adopted that Rukia felt like a normal person. Felt like she was judged by who she was rather than where she came from, and that made her deeply happy, opening her heart and becoming close friends with Kain. Along the years, Kain would stand by her and teach her, becoming a big part of her life. So when Kain's wife, who she had admired and respected, was killed, she joined the hunt for the Hollow Responsible without a second thought, offering up her abilities, even her life. But then Kain did something she hadn't expected. He refused her from fighting and asked to face the Hollow alone. Kain stood, facing a Hollow stronger than he was, alone. Rukia wanted to help, even attempted to when he was at his lowest. Kain had no chance, and she stood there and watched as the Hollow took over her mentor's body, until it reached a point that she was forced to kill him. His blood covering her body. Guilt, like Ichigo, is what eats away at Rukia. Guilt and regret that she just stood there watching and then wielded the sword that finally ended her friend's life. At first glance, Orihime is a character who doesn't seem to be living with grief, but as you look closer it becomes more apparent. She was raised solely by her brother after they escaped their abusive parents, and for 9 years Orihime and her brother Sora lived in harmony despite the lack of parents. One day Sora gave Orihime a pair of hairpins, but Orihime refused to wear them because she thought they were childish. She was already getting bullied for her unusual hair color, so why would she try and make it worse? She became angry with her brother for not understanding her situation. Even without speaking about it, she had assumed that her brother knew and was just thoughtless about the gift. That was the first and only argument that the two siblings had. And as a final punishment, to show how she felt, she didn't say goodbye to him when he left for work, a ritual that she had kept up for many years. That would be the last time she saw her brother. Later that day, Sora died. She prayed and prayed every day for him. It was the least she could do for the brother who had done everything for her. The hairpins that she had thought were childish became a keepsake, the lost remnant of her brother always kept with her. The other main characters, Chad and Uryu, also have experienced loss in the past. Chad with Asuka, who taught him to fight only if it was to protect others, and Uryu with his grandfather Soken, whose death was because the Shinigami were late to a job they had said they could handle alone. But the grief in Bleach is not just limited to the living, the dead are sad too. The role of Shinigamis is to send souls to the Soul Society. Most souls go on their own automatically, but some stay in the living world due to some strong emotion, protecting a location or pursuing a grudge from beyond the grave. Slowly these souls are consumed by their mission, becoming fallen souls, hollows. Hollows are the greatest representation of grief in Bleach, monsters full of sorrow and regret. These feelings have created a hole in their chest where their heart should be, forcing them to fill their empty hearts with other souls to ease their pain and suffering. Hollows are one of the main antagonists in the story, the core of Bleach being a struggle between Hollows and Shinigami, the fight against grief.
Well, see you around, Rukia.
Yeah. Thank you, Ichigo.
That's my line. Thank you, Rukia. Thanks to you, now it will finally stop raining.
For Ichigo, the rain represents all the regret and guilt he's been carrying with him since his mother's passing. She gave him the power to protect the people he cared about. But not just that, since her arrival he's become closer with a lot more people, befriended others with similar experiences to him, and finally spoke about his grief. Kubo's answer is that forming bonds with other people, caring about them, and protecting them will help you overcome your grief. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.